good at that.
Done. What a pro.
Yep.
He's such a pro.
See? I try my best.
Can I have your autograph, John?
Yeah. You can send me $5.95 plus $4 shipping and handling. Yep.
Yeah. First, I need to get my T-shirt.
Yeah, exactly. I'll send it with Matt's T-shirt. So, well, Warren Zevon, Matt, why'd you choose this one?
So Warren Zevon, Excitable Boy. We weren't covering him at all. He's an artist that I don't know terribly well. I know the hits. Obviously, I knew like probably half the songs off of this album. But kind of in line with a little bit of my theme this week, with Mike being such a big musical influence in my life and just introducing me to bands. Our uncles, our mother's brothers, are all very big music fans, and Warren Zevon is certainly an artist that I didn't know anything about until I think it's Uncle Danny always stands out as the one that played Warren Zevon a lot. But they all loved Warren Zevon. I do remember seeing this album cover and just like this guy, he doesn't look like a rock star at all. And then when you hear his voice, it's like, whoa, I don't expect that voice to come out of this guy.
What would you say Warren Zevon looks like? What would be the occupation if you saw him in a lineup of pictures?
Oh, wow. Occupation. I don't know. It's like he's got the quasi nerd thing going on with those like kind of Coke bottle glasses, but he also looks a little bit like he does look like an artist, like kind of like some sort of, I don't know, bohemian artist of some sort that was just very, very arrogant or like, very very pompous.
Not cool.
Bit. Yeah, and also not cool because he's got this like big blonde kind of fluffy hair. Like it's just.
I thought he looked like a music journalist would be the career that I would think he looks like. Yes.
Yeah.
So music journalist.
Yeah, so we weren't covering Warren's. He's not in any of the Rolling Stone or the best ever albums lists that we're covering, and thought we could look in a little bit of Warren Zevon. So I'll just do the numbers here. This album, Excitable Boy, ranked number 240 in the 1970s. It's actually the highest ranked album that we are covering tonight. It is Warren Zevon's highest ranked album on Best Ever Albums. It was ranked 21 in the year that it was released, 1978. So it is as old as I am. And the overall rank, 1,098. So so I know Mike's familiar with Warren Zevon, and so I thought maybe he could give us a little of his take on this. So,
I have to say, so I did take some notes tonight just to have an idea what I was going to say. And Matt, I swear the first thing I wrote up here was to talk about Uncle Danny.
Yep.
So when you started, and actually my first memory, I have a specific memory of being in Florida visiting my uncle, and him playing "Rollin' the Headless Thompson Gunner." And I wish maybe we can get Matt. You're down there. I don't know if you can get him to sing it into a. Maybe you can post that on Twitter.
Yeah.
But our Uncle Danny has this. I don't know how to describe it. It's like the Uncle Danny cool rock face. He's like rolling the headless Thompson Gunner, and he kind of shakes his head. And so I have a specific memory of hearing him play that. I was like, what is this strange, bizarre song? But just sounds really cool. There was something different and unique about it. So I always remember that song. I first bought this album, I was either in college or grad school, so it's been well over 20 years. And honestly, when I listened to it a few days ago, start to finish, I think it's the first time I've listened to it start to finish in probably close to 20 years. And I think that was telling, and that says something. And I'm actually... It's hard to articulate how I feel about this album right now because it's not what I remembered it to be. Obviously, good songs. The guy's talented. The songs are catchy. He's got a very unique voice. I like his sort of dark sense of humor. Sometimes he's a little too clever for his own good, a little bit. Some of it's a little much. But again, in an era where so many of these singer-songwriters were so serious and brooding, I mean, I think the sort of dark humor plays really well. But I guess the way I would say, and there's some great songs here. Like I love, Excitable Boy is really catchy. Probably my favorite song on the album is Lawyers, Guns, and Money, which might win the award for if you had never heard the song and just told me it was called Lawyers, Guns, and Money, I think I would tell you I'd probably like that song. It's just a freaking cool name for a song. But for some reason, what's the opposite? People say the whole is better than the sum of the parts. I don't know what the opposite phrase is for that, but when I take this as a whole album, it's it's not overall as compelling to me to make me want to come back to it as an
piecemeal album. Would that could be calling that piecemeal album?
And there's really only most of the songs are good. I mean, "Nighttime in the Switching Yard" is a terrible misstep. I think that's probably, I don't know what that is, but I really don't like. Everything else is really, really good. So I can't point to any one thing. It's just when I listen to the whole, I say, okay, I'd rather listen to Jackson Browne. I'd rather listen to any one of a number of people who kind of fall into this lane. As much as I appreciate him, and as much I appreciate a lot of the songs individually, it just, to me, is very unremarkable as an album. I actually I like his debut album a little. There's some really, really beautiful songs on that, and his debut album, which I'm not as familiar with. But I did listen to it this week, and I think he's got some great moments in his discography, certainly, even later in life. Because as you guys, I don't know if, he passed away in I think the mid 2000s or maybe 2000, maybe early 2010s or something like that. He's got some great work.
2003, young too,
56. Yeah.
Yep.
Is that long ago?
But I think he fits firmly in the, he's not a top tier artist to me. He's good. He's definitely a unique voice, and there's some great, like I said, there's some wonderful songs in this. But as a whole, it just doesn't move me as a whole. A little bit of a tangent, since we were talking about covers, not unrelated to this album. He does a cover in one of his later albums of a Steve Winwood 80s pop song, Back in the High Life Again.
Yeah.
Which is possibly, which sounds ridiculous, but it's probably one of the best covers I've ever heard. It's completely different. It's a beautiful, kind of heart-wrenching, especially when you know what he was going through in his life. I would highly recommend it, even if you think Steve Winwood, Back in the High Life Again. I think it's from his Life Will Kill You album. Anyway, that's my take on Warren Zevon. I would say, I still think it's a thumbs up. It's something I'd recommend that you listen to, but again, I wouldn't call it essential.
Gotcha. Matt?
Yeah.
Let's just continue with the format, yeah.
Yeah, I liked it. Like I said, I knew probably half the songs. I knew almost the entirety of the first side of the record. Like Rollin' the Headless Thompson Gunner, Excitable Boy, Werewolves of London. Obviously, that's the big hit from this, which I liked a hell of a lot more before Kid Rock.
I was going to say that too, Matt.
Reminded me that this is also very much falls in line with Sweet Home Alabama. And I was just like, son of a bitch, it sure does. Like, maybe I don't like the song as much as I did. So that's
in my notes too, Matt.
Yeah, I can't hear that song and not think of freaking Kid Rock rolling down on a.
You guys know who the rhythm section is for that song too, right?
What of in Kid Rock's band, or wait, what are you talking about?
Of Werewolves of London.
No,
it's Mick Fleetwood and John McVeigh.
I did not know that.
No.
Mm-hmm. Yep, that's who's playing the rhythm section.
Okay.
So if you like that, dun, 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 yeah, that's Fleetwood Mac.
Well, and that kind of takes me to one of the takes here. It's very bouncy. Like, it's a very upbeat. A lot of these songs are very upbeat, very bouncy. It starts off like that with Johnny Strikes Up the Band, Excitable Boy, Werewolves of London. It's got that, what was it? Tenderness on the Block. I think that's probably the song. I didn't know that song at all, and that's probably the one that I liked the most of the songs that I didn't know.
That's a good song.
Yeah, I thought that was great. And Lawyers, Guns, and Money. I love that riff. That dun 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 dun. It's just got. It's very solid all the way through. I agree with Mike. Nighttime in the Switching Yard is just kind of an out there in left field kind of song. It's like him he's doing funk, right? He's got this like 70s. It's
almost like disco.
Yes.
I think he was like, oh, it's 1978. I need to do a song that sounds
Yes, and I wrote that in here, upbeat and almost disco-like. Yeah, but it's very
Matt,
dated.
Did Jackson Browne produce this? Or
So I did do a little bit of research on this, and it does, because I was thinking maybe it was... there was a song on here that I was kind of like, oh, that sounds a little bit like Jackson Browne-esque. He was working with Jackson Browne. This is actually...
I know he produced his first album. But...
Well, no. Warren Zevon... No, his first album wasn't the one before this. This is actually his third... This is Zevon's third studio album.
Okay.
And so he did an album back... I think it was still in the 60s. It might have been 69 or 70. That was like really... It didn't do well at all. It wasn't any good. It didn't sell well or get any critical acclaim. And then that's when Jackson Browne came on and worked with him on his first album, the self-titled album. And he also worked with him here. So there's Jackson Browne kind of probably certainly helped him. And I also saw an old Rolling Stone review of this record that was basically saying, you've got, it's kind of comparing him to, he was Springsteen-esque. And the guy was basically saying, this guy's got a huge future ahead of him and he's going to do great things. And I don't know, that's part of, I don't really think that's what happened. I'm not sure about Warren Zevon's story, but he certainly, I don't remember him being a tour de force in the 80s or anything like that. But aside from the nighttime in the switching yard, which I didn't hate, it just seemed odd. It just, like Mike said, it's oddly placed in here. I like this a lot. I think it's interesting what you're saying, Mike, about it's liking the songs but not the whole thing. I don't know. Maybe is that something that maybe you had in your mind that you liked this album and you had good memories from it, and then you put it on and something was a little lacking there. Perhaps
The best thing I can say is individuals. You know what this is? This is an album I take songs from and to put it on a playlist. Mm-hmm. Like I would pick a song let's listen to it. Let's put a Warren Zevon song on this playlist, and that's awesome. But if I'm going to listen to it from start to finish, even though it's short, I can just think of a lot of other albums I'd put on before this. I think it's still a thumbs up. I just didn't. I can't think of a time in the last 10 or 20 years when I've been like, ooh, I want to listen to Excitable Boy all the way through.
And it's something that I've always known about and liked.
Does that make sense? Yeah.
Yeah, and I liked, when we hear Uncle Danny or any, JB playing this, it's like, oh, I like it. But I never, you got the album at least. I never even bought the album, so this is the first time I ever heard it. I love his voice. I think he's got a great voice. Yeah. It is distinct. When you hear a Warren Zevon song, it's him. I think this, there's parts of it that sound a little bit dated, but I still think it holds up. I think it's a solid album. And, I'm kind of curious as to what happened to him. So what's that, Mike?
Well, before John, can I say one thing before John? Because I really am curious to see what John thinks about this. But I wanted to point out, one of my favorite songs on this album is Nearly Ruined by what I would consider really terrible, cheesy backing vocals. I don't like the backing vocals on this at all. I think it's a bad decision. I don't know if it's just bad production, but I think Accidentally Like a Martyr is a beautiful song that is nearly ruined by the backing vocals on the chorus. I really wish they just left them out.
Okay.
He's got all kinds of backing vocals on this album, and recording names you would know, like Jackson Browne and Linda Ronstadt and stuff like that, but they are not the backing vocals that you are maligning now.
Probably not.
Which song was it again? Because I'm looking to see if I can find it.
Accidentally Like a Martyr. It's the one right after Wells.
That's the one actually.
Harmony vocals are by Carla Boniff, and
she sucks.
She is.
I'm sorry, Carla, if you're listening to this.
Find out.
No.
Carla Boniff is another person who Linda Ronstadt recorded her songs.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
And actually, that's the one I felt like sounded like a Jackson Browne song to me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
With a title like a Dylan song.
That's right. There you go. Yeah, absolutely. John, what do you think?
I know Zevon a lot from when he was on David Letterman, and I always found him to be a very fun guest on there. I used to like Letterman a lot, and he would be on there, and I can remember that I knew a little bit about I went all Josh, right? I knew a little bit about Zevon's death story. It's like I think he got cancer because he never went to the doctor, and it just that he would talk about it and joke about it. I was trying to remember the line. I actually looked it up. He's when Letterman asked him about what he learned about life and death, he said like enjoy every sandwich, which is something I remembered him saying and doing that. So he's kind of one of those guys I think that is pretty witty, and I remember being impressed by him as a guest and thought he was kind of a neat guy. In terms of his music, I knew Werewolves of London, and then I kind of probably about 10 years ago found out that the Fleetwood Mac guys were the background of that, which gave it like another life, because once you hear that, just like how you heard it as Sweet Home Alabama, right? I found that like when you hear it, you always hear Mick Fleetwood's drums in that, because he has such a sound, that big booming cascading sound, and as I listened to it, I'm like, yeah, that's definitely what he sounds like there. This album was like 50-50 for me. The songs I liked, most notably Rollin' the Headless Thompson Gunner, Lawyers, Guns and Money, Werewolves of London, and I actually liked Vera Cruz too.
Yes, that's a beautiful song.
Those songs stood out to me. The other ones kind of fell in that overly literate rock. I was fascinated by the stories here, because I'm like, I couldn't tell if these characters were fake or if they were rough sketches or if they were real. And it looks like a lot of what he was doing was taking these international incidents, and he was putting a protagonist in the international incident to talk about these different things. Like, to give you an idea, Veracruz is about the U.S. occupation of Veracruz. Rollin' the Headless Thompson Gunner is about a mercenary's experience in Africa. Lawyers, Guns, and Money is about a young man's adventures in Cold War era Latin America. And then there's the Tenderness on the Block and Accident Like a Martyr are about relationships that he says are sketches part of himself and part of people he knows. So it was interesting from a lyrical standpoint because I'll give him this. I wanted to hear what he was saying, and I was curious enough to seek out the narrative, so his lyrics were compelling enough to me that I did that. With that being said, sometimes it was a few too many words at once to digest, if that makes sense. And what really ended up standing out to me on the songs that I liked, I went a little like you, Matt. I liked the music more than the words on the songs I liked in some of the cases. So I would put this one thumbs in the middle for me right now, because as you were talking about it, Mike, I think I might agree with you that I think Warren Zevon might be more of a guy who would end up on a compilation I would make, and he would actually, his songs would go in specific compilations to specific people that I knew, right? And he would end up on more on compilation tapes for people that I know who are singer-songwriter fans and wide sketch, like love 60s, 70s, 80s, and 90s, 00s, modern day music, because I do think he has a timeless quality. In fact, when I listened to this album, and I don't know if you guys did, I had no idea when this album was recorded. In fact, I said to myself, Warren Zevon, like, you could have told me that this was from 1970 or 1983, and I would have probably said, that makes sense. Mm-hmm. So when I saw it was 78, which is, it's the latest album we've covered in any episode so far. So this represents the furthest march forward in popular music, or the closest to the current day, right? But you wouldn't know that this album was recorded in 1978. And so it kind of stands... Where would you say this stands, guys, in terms of peers in the late 70s? Because in the late 70s, where the mainstream is disco and AOR, the fringes is new wave and punk, and kind of the 60s and 70s are over, the foundation's there for the... where does this fall?
Well, are you talking about like specific artists, or just
like who's usually when you hear an album, right? Even the Flaming Groovies, even though they are kind of anachronistic, we were able to find peers for them in the 70s, right? Even in the mid 70s, who are the peers?
Well, the only one that stood out to me, like I said before, was Jackson Brown, but that's not all over. It's with a couple of songs, maybe. Mm-hmm. It's not with all of them.
Well, and he wrote one of the songs on this album.
Oh, did he?
With
Zevon,
really? Yeah, Tenderness on the Block. Yep.
Yeah. I don't know. Maybe there's some Springsteen elements here, but again, it's not totally in line with him. But that's probably another one that I would say.
That's a great question. I think it's hard. I think I say Jackson Brown too. Again, he's like, I don't know. He's like Jackson Brown's wise ass younger brother, but it's like it's not who's also got a political streak in him.
Well, right. He doesn't write Jackson Brown songs though. His songs are a lot edgier.
Yeah, well, that's what's funny is that I keep coming back to Jackson Brown because of the product, because I know they ran in the same, so you talk about the same backup singers, that they were all kind of in the same. I don't know if it's Laurel Canyon, or I don't know much about the history of that, but it seems like you guys have a lot more of that history than I do about who was singing for who, and Linda Ronstadt books her head.
It's in L.A. It's that L.A.
It's that same feel, right? And I just got done talking about how 70s rock is too serious, and I like the sort of edginess to it. But boy, I'll take Jackson Brown any day over Warren Zevon. Like, I don't know if you guys covering. Are you doing like Late for the Sky or anything like that?
Oh,
You're not?
No,
it's nowhere.
It's not.
I actually was shocked that Matt didn't pick a Jackson Brown.
I was considering it. I almost it was one of the ones that I was thinking.
Like I just anyway, that's a different conversation. But it's funny. I would take Jackson Brown as one of those artists that I would take over this any day. And I guess that's the closest thing. But yeah, with the piano, it's not nowhere near Elton John or Billy Joel or anything else like that. I mean, so I'm not really sure. I'd have to...
Yeah, he's kind of doing his own thing in some ways.
Yeah, he is. He is. And he definitely has a unique voice, for sure.
The only time you could tell it's 78 is there's that one song that has some disco in it.
Yeah. Nighttime in the
Switching Yard. Yeah, which is the one you guys hated, right? But that's the one that probably, when you listen to that, I bet you that was a single. because if you think of it in the context of 1978, well, I mean, this was the time when Kiss was doing disco, right? So, like, I think if a A&R guy is listening to this, right, they probably, in fact, I'm looking right now, there were 5 singles off this album.
That was not one of them. Oh, no, it was.
That was one of them.
It was. Yeah, you're right,
It
John.
was. It was the 4th single. Werewolves of London was only the 3rd single, by the way. They went Johnny Strikes Up the Band, Excitable Boy, Werewolves of London, Nighttime in the Switching Yard, and Lawyers, Guns, and Money. So it makes sense, though, when you think of 1978, because it's like, let's put a disco song out there.
So what do you think of Excitable Boy? What do you think of the lyrics to Excitable Boy? You said it was a single. Because how does that play? I think that song wouldn't play in 2021.
It's one of those songs. I didn't really listen to the lyrics, so I was surprised. I thought it was upbeat and fun.
It's you thought
it's
dark. No, it's definitely dark. It's like it struck me as like a not even struck. It's about him raping and killing a girl he went on a date with, right? Like to the prom, right?
I didn't know that.
I don't know if it's about
music didn't match up with that.
Well, it's like he
that's the point.
Dressed up, took her to the prom, killed her, and then buried her. Is basically what that song's about.
Raped her and killed her, and then he took her home.
I hate that.
That's the whole point. Is there?
It's a lot like it's a lot like the Last Dance with Mary Jane video, but as a song, kind of like
But that's the joke is that he's such an excitable boy. You know how boys are. You know.
Oh wow.
Oh yeah, there's satire all over this album, which is why I like them.
Yeah.
I didn't dismiss the overly the verbosity, I guess, or the overly verbose lyrics, because he did have a nice little edge, especially about, if you noticed, I don't know if you caught this, like a lot of the stuff that he really is singeing seems to be like aggressive or macho men. But he doesn't do it in that whiny wussy guy who seems like he got punched in the face by the guys like that. He does it more in like I know guys like this, but let me lift the veil a little bit type of way, which to me is always a more compelling way of doing it. Like he's not trying to make up for the guys who bullied him, right? He's more just making a societal observation, which I think gives his stuff a little bit more bite. Not that there's not a place to be said for that, but yeah. Mm-hmm.
John, I was happy to hear you said you really liked Vera Cruz, and I was wondering actually as I was listening to that, because I know you've been critical at times of artists sort of co-opting quote-unquote world music or different culture, and the sort of bridge of that song, which is sung in Spanish, which I think is beautiful. And again, the opening instrumental, obviously, it's a little bit of a different sound, but you liked it.
I did, because it was very much him just putting elements in. It's hard for me to explain, but there's times where... I've used Paul Simon Graceland for this. I've talked about Peter Gabriel. I'd put like Sting in the 90s in there. I don't hate everything they do on those albums, but they stay in that lane so much that you're always crossing a line, coming back over, crossing a line. This was one piece, and I just felt the composition of it worked, and the fact that there was legitimate Spanish in there. And if you see, by the way, he wrote this song with 2 other writers, one of whom was clearly, I think, a native Spanish speaker. Which I think it's actually 4 people he wrote it with: Jorge Calderon, David Lindell, Wadi Wachel, who I don't know at all, and then himself. But Jorge Calderon is like a American multi-instrumentalist. And I think having a guy with that credibility keeps you from... Interestingly enough, I'm reading this right now just on the fly. He actually was a traveling percussionist with Buckingham and Nicks, which was the 2-piece that they did before they were in Fleetwood Mac. So yeah, they were all, as you mentioned, they're all... I think J.D. Souther's all this album, and he's in with the Eagles and
guys.
So they're all in this like. Am
I right?
California.
Is that Laurel? Is that what when they talk about Laurel Canyon? Is that the? Am I thinking of something different, or is that it?
I think you're right. It's like post Manson L.A. Like is what I always think of, like the 70s.
But that was also like Crosby, Stills, like it was also in the late 60s too. Laurel Canyon was kind of a thing, but it's. It's kind of that sound is kind of permeated even through like now, like the band like Dawes, it's a band that Mike and I like. That's a very much of a Laurel Canyon sounding,
There's
California
a lot of writing
band.
about the Hollywood lifestyle and like the downsides of fame, but always in the,
Jenny Lewis.
wistful guitars. Yeah, that's actually a great person. Yeah, Rilo Kiley is sort of the modern carryover of that sound, if you want to go with
John,
bands in the last
Veracruz
15
also
years.
sounded like at the very end it had those like medieval Zeppelin like flutes kind of going in there and the harp and stuff.
It just,
So did you
I'm not against anything. It's just, does it work? And I just could tell that it was a more authentic item, at least to me. So it worked for me. Lyrics were excellent too.
Yeah. Well, yeah, it's a thumbs up for me. It's interesting to hear your takes. There's certainly things that I'm not totally privy to or listening to, particularly with the lyrics. But it's an upbeat kind of good rock album, and it is unique. I think that's a good point that you bring up, John. That trying to think of other people that kind of really are in his lane. There's dribs and drabs here and there, but it's kind of a unique sound. So
he also stayed pretty vital until the end of his life in 2003, and that you'd see him around. I mean, I know he did that band in the 80s with REM. Something with Hindu.
He did a band with REM. He was in a band with REM?
Did. It was called the Hindu Gods or something like that. I can remember. Hindu Love Gods. There you go. Wow, I can't believe I remember. Yes, it was a side project for REM.
Wow.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yeah.
Was it all the guys in REM or just like a couple of them?
Now I'm pulling it up so I can.
Peter Buck, Bill Berry, Mike Mills,
Peter
and Warren
Buck,
Zevon.
It was basically everybody but Michael Stipe.
Right.
Yep.
Wow.
Mm-hmm.
Look at that. John.
Although it says here Michael Stipe was on vocals and drums.
And he is listed as a past member, so maybe he just wasn't. Maybe it was one of those things like Temple of the Dog where Eddie Vedder did one song with him. You know what I mean? Like he kind of guessed it on a song, but he really wasn't technically a member of the band.
I love REM, so apparently their most famous song is a cover. I've never heard this. Apparently they had a song that reached number 23 on the modern rock charts in a cover of Raspberry Beret by Prince, which I'm trying to think of, because Warren Zevon and Michael Stipe are the singers on that band, so I'm trying to think of either of those guys singing Raspberry Beret.
Raspberry Beret.
Because, every Prince song, if Prince isn't singing it, I only can think of female singers singing his songs, and because if you think of every song Prince wrote that is famous that's not him, it's usually a female, right?
But point.
So, yeah, anyway, that's a tangent for a way another time. But maybe I'll put up what is it, Hindu Radio Gods? Hindu Love Gods, there you go, song on Twitter, yeah, so.
Hey, also, Cleveland Stack here,
doing.
we were just talking about Honky Chateau a couple weeks ago. Uncle Danny looks
like I said, the subtitle of our podcast.
Right, that's right.
Chateau,
Mike has always said that Uncle Danny looks like Elton John on the cover of that record. So if you want to see what...
Oh, wow, okay.
Yeah.
Okay, well,
Matt, you got to get him. You got to get him to sing "Roland."
I'm going to see him tomorrow.
Just say, "Hey, what's that song about the Thompson Gunner? Can you sing it?" And just you have to
record.
Have your phone out.
I'll see what I can do.
Was a warrior from the land of the midnight sun.
That's pretty good. That's what he sounds like, pretty much. So yeah,
you can do it as found audio,
I was doing the face too.
That's right. Well, right on. Well, Mike, thanks a lot for joining us, buddy. It was good having you on here. And
it was fun.
Maybe we'll do it again sometime. But we're gonna.
Yeah, good stuff, man. That was fun.
Any parting words for you about these albums, or about us, or about your life?
No, I would just anything about my life. No, I'm good. I enjoy the show. It's fun. I'm gonna go listen to Hindu Love Gods right now. As a matter of fact,
there you go.
I have no
start with Raspberry Beret, so you can give us a report on that.
But your homework is to listen to the Warren Zevon cover of "Back in the High Life" again. It's very moving.
I will promise you that will happen today.
Very, very moving. So
very good. All right, buddy.
All right. Take care, guys.
Take it easy.
Bye.
Have a good one.